Let's go ahead and learn about variables. A variable allows us to store a value into a placeholder, which we can later use it. For example, if you want to store two numbers, you can store them into a variable and then add them together, and you can store the result of a back into yet another variable, and then you can print it out. So here, let's say that you want to store whole numbers. So what we are learning here is primitives. So primitives. So primitives allows us to store simple values. So here, let's say that I say int and then number and then 1 equals 2 and then 20. I can also store number 2. So int number 2 equals to 20. And if I want to, now I can basically perform addition on these two numbers. So if I print and then say number 1 plus number 2 in here, and if I run this, you should see that we have 40 in here. So a variable, so this is a variable. So this is a variable, yet another variable. We can actually take the result. So we can take this also in here. So let me just cut that. Say int result equals 2 and then number 1 plus number 2. And here I can print the result. So result, and this is the exact same thing. There we go, 40. Now let's just basically cover this. So here, int, this is the data type, this is the variable name, and this is the value. So you have to say equals and then the value, and always end it with semicolon. The same here, int number 2, 20, and then the same here. Now int, so this is a data type that allows us to store whole numbers. If you want to store decimal numbers, there's a data type for that. So maybe you want to store the value of pi, just say double and then pi equals to 3.14. There we go. If you want to store true or false, i.e. booleans, you could say boolean and then is and then adult, for example, equals to and then false. So in here, this only takes true or false. If I try and put a number, for example, 3, this doesn't work. So if I say true, and the same here, if I try to put a true value in here, this data type only allows us to store decimal numbers. The same with integers. So if I say 20.0, this doesn't work because an integer allows us to store whole numbers. If you also want to store in here a character, you can say char, and then maybe we want to store the letter A equals. So here I've just named the variable A, and the value will be single quotes and then any letter in here. So these variables in here, they are primitives, and primitives allows us to store simple values. Later we'll cover reference types, which allows us to store complex values. But for now, just know that if you want to store simple values, use primitives. So for example, numbers, whether a value which is true or false, or a single letter, or a decimal number, so on and so forth. Next, let me show you the difference between int, double, boolean, and the rest of the primitive data types.